We have been married for 8 years. We had a full family, a daughter with a son, a private house with our own garden. It would seem that what could be better? But a young couple lived next door, aged 25, 30 years. My wife made very good friends with the neighbors, and I would even say too much. I often returned home after work, and they are visiting us. It is not very convenient when you come tired, hungry, you want to relax, and you have strangers every day in the evening. My wife avoided answering my questions, which she just answered. They are still young. They need help with the housework, so I tell them. But one evening, I return home. But my wife is not at home. It was strange, because she does not work anywhere. The children, as I learned later, were with her grandmother. I call her on the WhatsApp knowing she's always answering the phone, but this time was the exception. I went to the neighbors, thinking that this time, she decided to visit them. In principle, as I thought. I went to their gate, and my wife comes out, and also, sweaty. I was furious. I asked, "Why are you so raw?" She said she ran on their treadmill. I took her home saying we need to talk. This whole story made me terribly angry, and I decided to play detective. I bought hidden cameras that cost me $200, but I didn't pay attention to it. How can you live with such a person who constantly spends time with young, beautiful neighbors, but she has no time for her husband? It comes out wet from them. She ran on the track. Yeah, of course, that's how I believed. I placed the cameras in the corners of the rooms, set them up through my phone. After talking to my wife, I told her that I needed to leave for the weekend for work. But of course, not what job I will not go to. This weekend, I agreed with a friend that I would live with him. I didn't want to tell what I was going to do, so I came up with a fake story which he believed me in. I was surprised by what I saw. On the first day, I began to view the cameras, and I did not have to wait long. In our bedroom, my wife had fun with a young couple. I was speechless. I thought to break on the first day, drive everyone out of my house, but I thought, why? I no longer have a wife. I had fun with a friend this weekend as best I could. After a good weekend for me, I came home. I could not look my wife in the eyes, remembering the very shots that I saw. But the dialogue had to start. "How was the weekend, my favorite?" I asked. She replied that she missed me very much. I laughed. Missed so much that I had fun in our bedroom with our neighbors? Raising my voice, I asked, "What are you saying?" My wife laughed. I did not delay the moment for a long time and decided to just show her the video. Everything was clearly visible in the video. I looked at my wife and did not understand how I did not see this at the beginning of our relationship. I thought she was a completely different person. Get ready. A room with you anymore. And especially a bed. I don't want to share. I filed for divorce. The notification will come to your mother's address, I said in a calm voice. Story number 2. I am 40 years old, 2 children, married for 20 years. I've always been a very ambitious person, achieved a lot in business, constantly coming up with something and working hard. On the contrary, the wife is quiet. There are no special interests, but she always gladly supported me in everything. I got married very quickly after 6 months of dating after I broke up with another woman. I loved her, wanted to prove something to someone. Life turned around. He moved with her to America. Children were born. I loved her, but I would like to be with a more energetic, fiery girl. She was boring, but I got used to her. We were close in everything, and went through poverty and immigration. Lest I speak and do, she always agreed and followed me. But I always lacked some drive and novelty. Boring life in bed had no energy, just sex. And I also liked other women. And I began to cheat on her for sex. I didn't want to leave her or destroy her family. I had very brief romances, and she didn't know or know about it. I worked hard as I thought for the sake of my family. There was a lot of stress. And that one-day relationship helped me fight stress. I was coming home happy. This went on for 5 years. Then I started a new business. It was hard. A second child was born. I began to pay less attention to her because of work, not because of relationships. We swore often, as in all families. Then I found out by chance that she corresponded with my work boss. He sent her intimate photos, and they corresponded for about 6 months. She denied that they had intimacy, rather a virtual relationship, maybe virtual sex or something. I wanted to divorce. She begged not to. Then I started manipulating the kids and I gave up. Forced himself to believe that they did not have a physical relationship. I quit my job and moved to another state. I wanted to live there and come to her. But she and the children went to get me. I decided to try to live as it is. I started again in another place. The relationship has become almost the same. I had one-day romances with no emotion for sex. But she didn't know. I thought about her betrayal and often talked about it. I think she was trying to contact this person and follow his life. But he didn't want to have anything with her. I saw it. Then I fell in love with a girl 15 years younger. I immediately told my wife and said that I love this woman and want a divorce. It completely lost her temper. She didn't want to let me go for anything. She began to put pressure on the children again. The children were suffering. I gave up, and I broke up with this girl. We had an affair for 3 months. I was worried because I was in love with this girl. He broke with her, plunged into work, and just worked days and nights. Relations with his wife somehow recovered, but became worse because of me mainly. She refused to sleep with her. Sex was rare. I swore with her, started scandals myself. I was depressed. She wanted, constantly climbed into my bed. But as soon as she sought, she ceased to be interested in this until I moved away again. And I needed it, and it provoked my scandals and trifles. I felt she didn't like me, and the sex and feelings were superficial. Or maybe I myself was superficial and fixated on my experiences about that girl and work. But I was unhappy with her. And then I found out that she had a lover. There was a month after I returned to her after that girl. She went to his house almost every day when I worked. They went to restaurants, even went to rest. She paid for him. He is 10 years younger than her, illegal in America, without money and at home. She lied to him that she was divorced from her husband, there were no children. Very rich, she told him that she was 10 years younger than she really was. She had a long, very emotional betrayal for a year until I found out by accident. I left home and started a divorce. She started a tantrum, said that she only loved me, that I myself was to blame for everything. Then I found out that her mother and sister contributed to all this, advised her to divorce. They wanted her to have half of everything she had gained, and they wanted to move to America and live on everything ready. Her lover also wanted to marry her in order to get green card and money. I thought and decided to go back. She would take my children, bring my lover to the house, bring my mother, take most of what I have earned over the years, and, according to American law, I would still pay her a lot. She told me everything, gave me her phone with correspondence, and agreed to everything if only I stayed with her and did not divorce. I talked to her lover, and he turned out to be a very cowardly and slippery type. I never saw him again. Our honeymoon has begun and continues to this day. I began to pay attention to her, and she is happy. But I don't believe her. I can't forgive her cheating. I can't believe she was capable of cheating on me and lying so much time. This is the second treason, and can be repeated again. And I think, and the better I am than her, I also cheated. Or maybe he cheated because I felt her cold. I would have divorced if it weren't for the kids, but she would ruin their lives. What should I do? Pretend to be a honeymoon? Raise children for another 10 years? But I don't like her, I'm used to her, I feel trapped. I would leave, but I would lose my children and create everything in my life. But on the other hand, I miss it. Who was in a similar situation, tell me what to do. Story number 3. At 20, I married a company executive where I worked who was much older than me. Tell me now that because of the money, no. This was my first man in my life. I loved him very much. He was interesting, beautiful, successful, and he was always looked at by young girls. He looked after very beautifully and was generous. My mother approved of my choice. My life was like a fairy tale. I went abroad for the first time. I began to connect with very interesting people who were also much older than me and treated me with kindness. Expensive outfits and jewelry. My big house. My husband loved me very much, and he was never jealous. Allowed a lot, and clubs, and frank clothes. I was jealous of him for everyone who looked at him. We were doing well in bed too. He taught me a lot. Later we had a child, a son. I wanted to give birth to his son. And from that moment on, problems began in my life. Household chores, lack of sleep, fatigue from the child, and jealousy that his ex-wife had a housekeeper, nannies, and in our family everything was on me. My husband did not help me around the house and with the child, as he was constantly at work. I began to constantly complain to my mother and close friends about my husband. I went to my mother several times, but then, feeling that I loved him, I returned. She arranged scandals for fools, even threw herself at her husband with fists. He endured all this, tried to influence me in his own way, was offended, did not talk, pushed me away from intimacy. I believed that he was breaking my character and naturally resisted. Plus, my mother and friends supported me in everything. They hit me in the head that I was such a beauty, and let my husband rejoice that he lives with a young one. That went on for a couple of years. It's good, it's bad. In one of these bad moments, I again went to my mother, and there I met my classmate, whom I had previously looked at while at school. Handsome. He was already married and had a daughter. Mutual attention began, meetings, and I cheated on my husband. I was happy at that moment. As always, she shared her happiness with her mother and friends. They were also very happy for me. They advised not to return to her husband and try to build new relationships with her peer. After some time, I still returned to my husband. He really persuaded me, missed the child. But returning to my husband, I already lived with an attraction to another, and my husband noticed it, felt it. I rolled up a scandal once again, provoked honestly so that we would divorce, but at the same time did not tell my husband about the betrayal. I made him guilty of everything, said that I did not like him anymore, packed his things, and went back to my mother. My husband finally said that he loves me very much, and will hope that my young character will calm down. You just need to live separately for a little time, and if you do not dare anything, then we will divorce. I returned to my mother. She took on all the worries of raising a child, and I started dreaming of a new life with my beloved. I just flew with happiness that now I can do what I want. I decided to take my lover out of the family. I did everything openly so that his wife would find out about everything. She found out. I made a scandal for him, and he, frightened by the consequences, abandoned me. I was not very upset, but still it was unpleasant. Then I had other connections. It was as if I was released into the wild and I met with many guys. Of course there were well-wishers, and my husband found out about my betrayal and did not forgive. A divorce ensued. I had not yet thought about the serious consequences of the divorce, and I was sure that my friends and mother said that my husband would not take the child from me. And in the end, everything went into circulation. I do not know what truths he achieved in court that the child was given to him for upbringing. It shouldn't be like that. I am not a drug addict. I am not mentally ill, really stupid, and I myself was afraid of such a decision. I myself gave the child to my father and hoped that my husband would play enough with the child and return it. And he packed up and went to another city. As I now know, he generally now lives in another country. I am very sorry that I did such a thing. I regret that I listened to my mother and friends. After all, everything was fine with me. I just didn't walk around in my youth and decided to try another candy. Everyone is laughing at me now. I feel like even my girlfriends. I feel friends whispering behind my back. All lovers turned out to be only lovers. No one is serious, and even such a story is behind me. Only now I am really ashamed and offended. I do not know with whom to consult and what to do to return everything. I know that my husband still lives alone, with a child. Maybe he still loves me, so one. But I don't know what to find words for him in an apology. And will he forgive me for cheating? I really miss my son, and communication becomes less and less. Probably my husband is taking revenge on me there. It is very scary to understand that I have lost everything.